What if I told you that over 2,500 years ago, a man had visions so detailed and precise that he predicted the rise and fall of global empires long before they even existed? His name was Daniel, a young Jewish captive taken to the mighty empire of Babylon. Far from home, living under a foreign king, Daniel remained faithful to his God. And because of that unwavering faith, he was shown extraordinary revelations, visions that would span centuries and speak directly to the times we live in now. These weren't dreams born from fear or imagination. They were prophecies, some of which have already come to pass with astonishing accuracy, but others are yet to be fulfilled. What did Daniel see about the future? What messages did he leave for a world on the edge of history's final chapter? What you're about to discover goes far beyond coincidence. It's a story written through time, a warning, a mystery, and a truth waiting to be revealed. There was once a king, powerful, feared, and surrounded by wealth and glory. His name was Nebuchadnezzar, ruler of ancient Babylon. One night, he had a dream so disturbing, so overwhelming, that it shook him to his core. But when he woke, the memory had vanished. He couldn't remember a single detail. Only the fear lingered. Desperate for answers, he summoned all his wise men, magicians, and counselors, demanding not only an interpretation, but the dream itself. And when no one could deliver, he threatened them all with death. But in the shadows of the palace, a young Jewish exile named Daniel prayed. And in the stillness of the night, God revealed to him the king's forgotten dream, every image, every meaning, every symbol. The next day, Daniel stood before the most powerful man on earth and spoke with a calm boldness that no one expected. The dream was of a statue, massive and terrifying. Its head was made of pure gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, and its feet a fragile mix of iron and clay. Each section of the statue represented a kingdom, stretching across centuries. The golden head was Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar's own empire. After it would come the silver of the Medes and Persians, followed by the bronze of the Greek Empire, led by Alexander the Great. Then the iron legs, Rome, a kingdom that crushed nations under its feet with brutal force. And finally, the feet, part iron, part clay, representing a divided world in the final chapter of history, a time of both strength and fragility, unity and instability. But the dream didn't end there. A stone appeared, small, uncut by human hands. It struck the feet of the statue and shattered the entire image. That stone then grew, becoming a mountain that filled the whole earth. Daniel explained, "This stone represents the kingdom of God, not a human empire, not a political alliance, but a divine reign that will crush all others and last forever." As written in Daniel 2:44, "In the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed. It will crush all those kingdoms and bring them to an end, but it will itself endure forever." And history confirmed it all. Babylon fell to the Medo-Persians. They in turn were conquered by the Greeks, who were eventually overtaken by Rome. Everything Daniel described unfolded exactly as he said it would, centuries before it happened. But the story doesn't stop there. Years later, Daniel had another vision. This time he saw 4 beasts rising from a stormy sea. The first resembled a lion with eagle's wings, a symbol of Babylon's power and swiftness. The second, a bear holding 3 ribs in its mouth, representing the Medo-Persian Empire and its conquest of 3 major kingdoms. The third was like a leopard with 4 wings and 4 heads, an unmistakable image of the Greek Empire, split after Alexander's death. These weren't just random visions. They were messages, coded warnings, divine clues meant for the ages. And many scholars believe we are now living in the time of the statue's feet, a divided world, strong in some places, weak in others, standing on a fragile foundation. So what does that mean for us? Is the stone already rolling toward the statue? Are we on the edge of something bigger than we can imagine? Could this ancient prophecy be unfolding right before our eyes? Let's talk about it. What do you think the stone represents in our time? Do you believe we're living in the final era Daniel saw? Share your thoughts in the comments. This is a conversation the world needs to have. There's a part of the book of Daniel that reads more like a gripping vision from a vivid nightmare than an ancient prophecy. But the deeper you go, the more you realize. It's a roadmap of human history, a warning of what's to come, and a glimpse into a spiritual war that's been unfolding for centuries. After Alexander the Great swept through the known world with unprecedented speed and power, the Greek Empire stood tall and mighty. But that glory didn't last long. After his sudden death, the empire didn't fall to an enemy. It broke apart from within, splitting into 4 regions, each ruled by one of his generals. Daniel had seen it all in his visions, described symbolically as 4 horns rising after the great horn broke. But what came next was different, terrifying, unlike anything else. Daniel saw a 4th beast, one that defied comparison to the others. It was brutal, strange, almost mechanical in its cruelty. It had iron teeth. It devoured, crushed, and trampled everything in its path. And it had 10 horns, symbols of power and dominion. This beast represented Rome and its lasting legacy, a system of power that has shaped the world for centuries in ways that still linger. Then something strange happened. Among those 10 horns, a smaller one rose. Not large or intimidating at first, but far more dangerous. It uprooted 3 of the original horns, establishing its dominance quietly and forcefully. This little horn had human eyes and a mouth that spoke boastfully, arrogant words, blasphemous words. And it didn't stop there. It waged war against the holy people of God, and it won for a time. In Daniel 7:25, the prophecy says, "He will speak against the Most High and oppress his holy people and try to change the set times and the laws. The holy people will be delivered into his hands for a time, times, and half a time." Many Bible scholars recognize this mysterious horn as the Antichrist, the final figure who will rise in opposition to God and his people in the last days. What Daniel described is echoed later in Revelation 13, where a beast emerges from the sea, speaking proud words, making war against the saints, and ruling with terrifying authority. But Daniel's visions didn't end there. In another vision recorded in chapter 8, he saw a ram with 2 horns, representing the Medo-Persian Empire, defeated by a male goat with a single large horn, the symbol of the Greek Empire under Alexander. Once again, that horn broke, and 4 smaller ones rose in its place, symbolizing the fragmentation of Alexander's empire. But then, from one of those came another little horn, one that reached toward the heavens, challenged the armies of God, stopped the daily sacrifices, and desecrated the holy sanctuary. It was a direct attack not just on people, but on divine truth itself. These visions aren't just ancient poetry. They paint a picture of a future defined by intense spiritual conflict. According to Daniel, a time will come when truth is thrown to the ground. The faithful will be persecuted. God's laws and values will be openly defied, and moral foundations that have stood for generations will be challenged and twisted. But the story doesn't end in darkness. Daniel saw the Ancient of Days seated on a throne, God himself in all his majesty preparing for judgment. Books were opened, justice began, and that proud little horn, stripped of power, condemned. The authority it once held was given to the holy ones of the Most High. In the end, God's kingdom prevails, not just spiritually but politically, eternally. It's the climax of history. God restores what evil tried to destroy. And then comes what many consider Daniel's most mathematically precise prophecy. In chapter 9, the angel Gabriel appears to Daniel with a revelation unlike any other. He outlines a prophetic timeline. 70 weeks are decreed, each week representing 7 years. That's 490 years in total. It's a divine countdown for Israel and the world. The first 7 weeks, 49 years, mark the time it would take to rebuild Jerusalem after the Babylonian exile. Then come 62 weeks, 434 years, leading right up to the appearance of the Messiah. That leaves one final week, 7 years. A chapter in prophecy that hasn't yet played out in full. Many believe we are standing on the edge of that final week, the countdown nearing its end. The question is, are we watching prophecy unfold right in front of us? Are the signs of this final kingdom already here? Is the little horn rising in silence behind closed doors, preparing to change the world again? If this stirred something in you, if you feel like the world is shifting in ways that align with these ancient prophecies, drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's open this conversation together. Do you think we're living in the time of Daniel's final vision, or is the most important part of the story still ahead? There is a moment in the book of Daniel that leaves us in awe, not just because of its poetic depth or historical relevance, but because of its unmistakable precision. A prophecy spoken centuries before its fulfillment that unfolded exactly as foretold. From the decree of the Persian king, often identified as Artaxerxes, to rebuild Jerusalem, all the way to the triumphant entry of Jesus into the holy city, exactly 483 prophetic years passed. These 69 weeks of years, as revealed in Daniel 9:25, weren't just numbers. They were a countdown leading straight to the arrival of the Messiah. But the prophecy doesn't end there. 1 week remains, one final 7-year period, known in biblical prophecy as the 70th week of Daniel. And it hasn't been fulfilled yet. According to Daniel 9:27, in this final week a ruler will rise, a charismatic, cunning leader, who will confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. But in the middle of the week he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering, and on the wing of abominations shall be one who makes desolate. And this period is known as the Great Tribulation, and it will mark the darkest chapter in human history, a time of spiritual deception, global chaos, and unprecedented persecution. But this prophecy isn't hidden in the shadows. Jesus himself pointed directly to it in Matthew 24:15, saying, "When you see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by the prophet Daniel, standing in the holy place, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains." It's a clear warning and a clear sign of the final days before his return. The phrase abomination of desolation appears multiple times in Daniel's visions. It refers to a shocking act of desecration, a blasphemous insult against the holiness of God's dwelling place. In Daniel 11:31, it's written, "Forces from him shall appear and profane the temple and fortress, and shall take away the regular burnt offering, and they shall set up the abomination that makes desolate." This prophecy found a partial fulfillment in history long before Jesus was born, when Antiochus Epiphanes invaded Jerusalem in 167 BC. He outlawed Jewish worship, defiled the temple by erecting an altar to Zeus inside the sanctuary, and even sacrificed a pig, an unclean animal according to Jewish law, on the altar meant for God. It was a moment of horror and outrage, sparking the Maccabean revolt and eventually leading to the rededication of the temple, an event still celebrated today in the festival of Hanukkah. But Antiochus was only a foreshadowing, a preview, a type of the one who is still to come, the Antichrist. Daniel saw it all, the rise of a deceiver who would defy God, persecute his people, and attempt to rewrite truth itself. He is the little horn of Daniel 7:25 who will speak words against the Most High and wear out the saints of the Most High and think to change the times and the law. And yet Daniel's visions don't end in despair. They end in triumph. In chapter 12, Daniel is shown the resurrection, one of the clearest glimpses of eternal destiny in the entire Old Testament. "And many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt." Daniel 12:2. This is not symbolic. It is the literal resurrection, where the eternal destiny of every soul will be made clear. The righteous, those who clung to truth, will rise to life, the wicked to judgment. In that same chapter, Daniel is told to seal the book until the time of the end, because many of these truths would only be fully understood as history moved forward and as prophecy drew closer to fulfillment. Daniel 12:4. And now, here we are, living in an age where prophecy is being unsealed. Technological advancements, global political instability, the emergence of centralized control, and spiritual confusion all point to something bigger. For the first time in history, the world has the infrastructure to create the kind of economic and surveillance system described in Revelation 13. A global order, prophesied thousands of years ago, is beginning to form before our eyes. But remember, Daniel's visions weren't given to frighten, but to prepare. They remind us that God is sovereign over history, and no matter how dark the night becomes, he has already written the final chapter. As Daniel saw in chapter 2, there will come a moment when a stone, cut without hands, strikes the statue of worldly kingdoms and shatters them. That stone grows into a mountain that fills the whole earth, representing the eternal kingdom of God, which will never be destroyed and never pass into the hands of another people. Daniel 2:44. This kingdom is not built by political alliances, weapons, or human power. It is established by the return of Jesus, the true King. And those who remain faithful, even through tribulation, are promised a place in that kingdom that will never end. So, what about you? Do you see the signs around us aligning with what Daniel wrote? Do you believe we're living in the final days? Have you noticed how fast things are changing? Morality, politics, global unity? What do you think the abomination of desolation could look like in our modern world? Let's talk about it. Share your thoughts in the comments. This isn't just history. It's prophecy. It's a warning, and above all, it's an invitation to trust the God who sees the end from the beginning. If this message spoke to your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs hope, who needs understanding, who's searching for truth. Subscribe for more content that will strengthen your faith and open your eyes to the times we're living in. And always remember, while the kingdoms of this world are shaking, the kingdom of God remains unshakable. And you were called to be part of it. Until next time, stay awake, stay faithful. The King is coming.